the most significant observation we have for our students at the HBCU is that our students are still among the most vulnerable in higher education. So let that settle in for a second. They are still among the most vulnerable when it comes to higher education. But in this field of social work, we are preparing them to meet the needs of the most vulnerable in our community. So now we had to take a step back and say, hey, we're not as far as we thought, right? And not only are we not as far as we thought we were, but we're sending our students out to work with the most vulnerable people. So how do we attack that? How do we deal with that in the midst of this online and COVID, and some of the ways that it has really impacted our ability to engage with our students? So our students still struggle with financial resources to complete their degree. There is now a cap on financial aid. So if we have students who most often are waiting for loans, and they don't understand that if they take W's or they have an F in a class, that will count towards their total financial aid, we end up with students in their senior year who cannot complete. Retaining our students and keeping them on track has become exponentially more difficult in this remote environment. And as I see in some of the chat, there are plenty of examples of that. So our mentoring, our advising, and our overall engagement with our students has become more complex in this remote environment. And we have really felt that in a major way over this last year, specifically in this year, because of course, in March, when we first left the university, we thought we were leaving for spring break, and it ended up, we ended up where we are now. So in order to pivot, we pivoted for 8 weeks, but then we were faced with coming back to a fully online modality in the fall, and now in this closing in the spring. So then our peer support cohorts and social ties also became more difficult as well. Students' sense of connection to our institution became difficult. And what we decided to do at Bowie State University as a community was to have a freshman intensive model where we allowed some of our freshmen to come on so that they could feel a connection with the institution. And then I'm going to talk some more about what I did specifically in my freshman seminar class that is solely for social work students. And that is one way that we retain and continue to recruit and to continue to build relationships, by having our first class as a freshman seminar class. And I teach that class, and I'm proud of teaching that class, because we move our students into our intro class, and that is what Phyllis is going to discuss as well. So there's also disparity in access to online learning. How many of you have experienced that with some of your students, right? And so definitely access doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a successful venture for the students. We do also know that we're now competing with students who have either decided to work by becoming frustrated with the online learning, or really have had to take on a full-time job to help their families. And so we really have had to deal with that as well. And so the financial support diminished. The average net price of in-state tuition and fees cost 40% or more of the median household income for Black households in 17 of our states. Let me repeat that. Financial support diminished. The average net price of in-state tuition and fees cost 40% or more of the median household income for Black households in 17 states. So it's not enough to really get them. We have to get them and keep them.